Hi everyone. Okay, this is another art journal for sale, and I just want to. I have my current art journal out because I'm going to make note of something here in a minute. So this journal is called StoneDuffy, and that has meaning for me. Probably would have no meaning for you guys. This cover was done with oil pastels and markers and a little bit of acrylic paint. Probably one of my most favorite covers. It's been covered with wax, so it doesn't come off on your hands or anything. And I don't really know what the back looks like. Okay, so the back is just the end, which I used to do all the time anyway. But the most important thing I really want to get across, this journal was some really rough periods for me online in the art world. But one thing I wanted to quickly talk about is the faces that are in this journal. This journal was from June of 2011 to January of 2012. A lot of my students, I constantly tell them, you will get better, you can get better. You just have to keep trying and pushing and growing and practicing. And I've had so many people tell me they can't, etc., etc., etc. And this is what I was doing in 2011. This is what I do now. It's a huge, giant difference, right? This is what I create now. This was what I was able to do back then. And this is one of the better faces that are in this journal. So believe me when I say that I came from not really being able to draw at all to putting in the time and effort and getting to the point where I really like, not that I don't like this face, I do. I can remember when I painted it, but I really have grown so very much. And I just wanted to show that in a 10-year period of time, 9 technically, how much you can grow if you're just working within, not comparing yourself to other people, just doing your thing and just always doing your thing and practicing. Okay, so this journal, I was very heavily into spray inks, and stencils. This journal covers a variety of different huge periods of time, or huge moments, I guess you would say, in my art journey. And I would say, unfortunately, I ran into the wrong people right at the beginning. And if you get in with the wrong crowd right in the beginning, it can derail your art significantly. I really had to fight my way back to enjoying my art, and it took me a very long time to get over those first things, which some of the things are in here and you wouldn't know by looking at it, but I remember the moments. And as I remember the moments, I realized I should have listened out to the outside world a heck of a lot less and just paid attention to the inside world. In other words, me and what I was doing, and just focused on that. Not to sound selfish, I don't mean it in a selfish way. I just mean it in a pay attention to yourself way. So this was when I was really enamored with doing everything with black and white ink in my journal, other than just all the color that came from painting and stuff as well. This was when I was starting to get really interested in creating my own elements to put into my journal, and doing lots of cutting things out. Some of these pages are lessons from a private group that was originally called Art Geeks. That's where Art Geeks started, but it was kind of a private group behind someone else's website, teaching site. And also too, this is an altered book, and I didn't cut the pages down as much as I should, so you'll notice that the spine isn't as it doesn't lie flat like it should. But I was still learning about how many pages to leave in for an art journal, because I do anyway, leave a lot more pages in for an art journal than I did for an altered book, and how long to leave the ends. If I could do anything differently, I think I would go back and do our altered book art journals where I actually deconstruct the book and just put text blocks in. But back then I was still in the altered book mindset of, this is how I learned, so this is how I'm going to do it. Again, lots of spray inks, and unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, I was using the Rit Dye homemade ones, so a lot of these are really dark. They're still beautiful, but they have faded a bit. But considering it's been 10 years, I think it's, fine as long as you don't display it openly. So some of these, again, are prompts from that private Art Geeks group that I ran for a while. Not to be confused with the regular Art Geeks group, which was more of a public open group. This was the first face I ever drew, and so I always love this whenever I see this image, because it's the first image I ever drew, face I ever drew, and I turned it into a little printable. I don't know if I still have it or not, but I still smile whenever I see it. Again, lots of Rit Dye spray inks, and you can see the faces. Like, my faces have changed so very much. So if your faces look like this now, you just need to put in the time, and your faces will improve. Don't believe anyone who tells you, you should draw bunnies. I was totally into this, for whatever reason, this flower design for the longest time. I think I still do it sometimes too, even. And there are a lot of pastel drawings in this. So this is just raw pastel, which you really can't seal. So those pages are either facing each other, or you'll find I left a blank page to face it, so that it wouldn't smear all the other pages. But I really do love these, and I really should get back to drawing with hard pastel. And these are hard pastel, not soft pastels. Yeah, so I was super proud when I made this face, I was so super proud of it, because I was supposed to be, she was floating in water. It's wonderful to look back at them now, because I really have grown so very much. I mean, I don't know if you can see these, because the light is kind of unfair to it. It's brighter in person. But I mean, these faces, they're so cute. But you can see, I mean, practice. That was all I did, was practice faces. More pastel pages with a little top hat. I really do love this journal. More pastel faces. I didn't even realize that I did a face with tears all those years. You have to love them. You just have to. See, I even said growing pains. Yeah. And this is, I don't know if you can tell, it's heavily textured. This is, I think this is just, what is it called? Light molding paste, yeah. And it's here again too. I was totally into doilies and paper lace and stuff like that at the time. Inchies, I did a little class for that private group where I did inchies, because people just didn't understand how fun and unique inchies could be. And they also didn't realize that you could do inchies with a variety of different types of products. So these inchies are all all spray inks. Both of them are all spray inks. And each one is like its own little piece of art. And I call these serendipity inchies because they start out a whole page that you just add the color and stuff to, and then you come back in and make each one individual. These inchies were done with watercolor. And these inchies were all collage based, I think. yeah, it was just, I made a huge page that I just collaged scraps and stuff on. This was a part of it, and turned those into individual little inchies. And I think that's it, yeah. I remember when I did this face, I was so incredibly in love with this face. I might even scan this. I think I have it, but if I don't have it, I think I'm going to scan this before I sell this journal, because I remember I felt like this was a huge breakthrough in faces for me. This was, I had a beautiful picture of a church. I think it's a church building. I don't know, it came out of an old book, and I was so in love with it that I traced it out, if I remember right, or I glued down the original. I can't remember. Either way, I took my hot glue gun, and I don't know how well it shows up, and I just traced around, you know, the parts I liked, and then I very carefully used artist paint sticks, the Shiva iridescent artist oil paint sticks, and colored the whole thing so it's very glittery. I absolutely loved when I made this. I was super happy with it. And these were also watercolor Serendipity inchies. I haven't made inchies in a really long time. She's so cute, isn't she? Again, this is also a hot glue gun, just freehanding a rose on it. And again, I went over it with iridescent paint sticks. Oh, and it says here it was inspired by Tim Coffey. I forgot his name. He's the person who I originally saw do something with glue stick, not glue stick, hot glue gun. My goodness. So Tim Coffey, I don't know if he still does videos or not, but you should check him out. This was me testing out stencils. Every time I would make a stencil, I would test them out. And probably this was a little lesson, more than likely, but I don't really remember. This is another hard pastel drawing, and this is a case where you can see why I left this page blank, because his beard and stuff just really transfers over. Okay, so this was my first online class ever, and this was the original 30 days class, so there's a lot of the lessons from that here. And I remember being critiqued and told that I should never I should never teach a class that was, or that had lessons in it that were seasonal. That's the kind of things that people say to you when you're trying to do your thing online, and other teachers love to knock you down and get you to not do things. I've since seen that very person make a similar type of page, which just cracks me up. Best advice I ever got was to follow my heart and my intuition and my obsessions. And I don't use that word anymore, but that's how long ago it was in 2011 that I was thinking about using that word, and then eventually turned it into a class, name of a class. I really, to this day, still just absolutely love this page. I love the color. I love circles. I love stars. It makes me very happy. Just a random pen drawings over top of painted background page. I don't think this was a lesson, but this was a lesson for that original 30 days class. This was a lesson for that 30 days class. Page was called Quilted. You'd be surprised. This is lace over top of, I think, a magazine image with some roses. This I used my own stencil to make. This is material that I stenciled. These are just tissue paper. This is actually just paper towel that had soaked with a lot of paint and ink. This is just a magazine page, and the whole thing is padded. And basically I just took clean, unused facial tissues, folded them up, sewed them together and then glued each one down. This is also fabric, by the way. My truth. Okay, I couldn't even read what that was. This was the first time I had painted this and on heavy watercolor paper, and I didn't like the rest of the painting, but I super liked this part of it. So I was like, I'm gonna use it. I'm not gonna throw it away because I didn't like the rest of the painting. So I just literally cut her out. So this was the first time I ever did anything like this, where I did a cutout and then I made it a a tip into my journal. That was the first time I ever did that. Again, another one where I just absolutely fell in love with. I thought I did such an amazing job because I was moving into actually being able to shade or attempting to shade faces more than just like flat color. So yeah, I was super happy with that one. This I really loved, and I can't remember what all I made it with, but it was so like hard to see, and I think it was because I used spray inks on the background or something first. I don't remember, but I remember being happy but disappointed because I really liked the face, but it was like, it's really dark. This was my attempt at painting Christina Aguilera. Yeah. And this is heavily textured, and I forget what I used. I think I used sand or coffee grounds or something to get this texture. I don't know if, yeah, it really comes through, but it's very interesting to look at. Again, I think this was a lesson for a class I did. This is heavily, every bit of this is super heavy texture. I do so love that. There are several pages in here like that. This page I did the hot glue on it, and then I pressed a, no, actually I don't think this was hot glue. I think this one was, oh, what is that stuff called? It's a gel, tar gel, I think is what this was, and that stuff is like ridiculously sticky. So I painted multiple coats of paint and gesso over it to get it to stop being sticky, and it was just, I had just been playing, and so it was a real mess, so I just painted over the pages. This is the original painting that I used for many years for the logo for Art Geeks. So this is the original painting. This is my daughter, and this is my mom. We went on a trip, just a girls trip, and these pictures were from that. So, yeah, I think everybody probably would recognize this face. This was at the time, during the time where I was a part of Occupy, if you know what Occupy was. So there are several pages in this journal dedicated to things like We Are the 99%, stuff like that. And this was fun because I think I just did this painting like on a freestanding piece of watercolor paper, and I wanted to keep it, but it didn't fit into the journal, and so I had the idea to cut it apart and then just put little, just space it out in order to be able to put it on here. I think this might have been a lesson. I don't really remember. I sometimes have a hard time remembering stuff, whether it was a lesson or not. But this basically says, I don't resent your opinion, I resent your attempt to make it fact. True beauty comes from within. I remember I was super happy when I painted this. I think this might be a oil painted face, actually. It's hard to remember. This was definitely a lesson. The whole concept of the lesson was teaching how to do this because it's, again, nicely textured. And then I just built the entire page around it, just using my own stencils and doodling. This, I wanted a Buddha shaped stencil, so I just hand cut one out, and then just had a lot of fun using it all over the place. And I think this was a lesson in how to make these pages, but I can't remember exactly. This was not a lesson. This was just something that was fun that I was playing around doing. And I was talking, strangely enough, about tornadoes and hurricanes. I have no idea why. This was not a direct lesson, but I do distinctly remember using this because I originally painted this whole thing completely differently, and the only thing I liked about it was her little face. That was it. I hated everything else about the thing, and I really came close to just gessoing over the whole thing. And I finally was like, no, I need to keep pushing through. I really just need to keep pushing. And so I just kept working with, painting out the background and stuff like that, and ended up with something that I really liked. And so I felt like that was a lesson to myself that I needed to keep pushing through and not give up just because I didn't like a face initially, or the rest of it initially. This was a sarcastic page because this was when things with that group of people I was telling you about really broke down. And so, yeah, you can't tell. It doesn't look it, does it? But I remember the day I painted this. I really do. This is, again, where I just really love pink and gold, and then with a hint of another color, in this case, the turquoise. And this also is heavily textured. I used a gold paint that I had bought that was intended to be used to create texture on a wall, and instead I just scraped it through stencils, and you get that lovely raised effect. This was actually someone else's art journal video that I was trying to follow, and I didn't get it. Still can't do automatic drawing, but it was fun at least to try. You really can grow and improve if you just keep pushing. That's about all I have to say about that. This was when I first started cutting edges on pages, scalloping them, and doing different things. This was in 2011. And this was when I started using other people's art. So basically I cut these little houses from a craft magazine because I just really liked the little house shapes. Like I couldn't have drawn it myself. Anyway, but I really just liked them. I think they were like little birdhouses or something. And I painted over them completely because I didn't want to feel like I was doing something wrong, because I had been told it was wrong to do that. Never listen to what people tell you. Listen to yourself. And just do your thing. But anyway, yeah, I super like those houses, so I incorporated them into a page. I remember when I was super happy with this because, and you can tell I still didn't understand, but three-quarter faces were the hardest thing in the world for me to learn how to do. And so I was really happy when I did this because I at least managed to make her look like a human being. This one was just super fun. I want to say it was a lesson, but I don't know if it was or not. And this was really when I started beginning to do things like using jewelry in ways it wasn't intended, and as well, like trying to tell a story. Like I think you automatically look at this and think, rich, fancy night out or dancing, you know what I mean, like that kind of thing. So I really was happy with the fact that I had started kind of cutting out collage and trying to apply it. This was a quote from someone who I was friends with at the time, and it really made me laugh. Yes, I talk a lot, but you should hear what I don't say. Her name was Linda Baldock. And again, I remember being totally in love with this face. This was also a page that had a lot of, this was the first time I started pulling apart paper towels that I had used to soak up art messes or ink and stuff. And it's all throughout here. This is when I first started using pulling apart paper towels and using them. This too as well. That's what all of this is. This page, I literally did nothing with it because I absolutely loved this page. It just made me so super happy to look at it. I love the color combination. I love all the shapes. And it didn't need anything else, and I was perfectly happy to just leave it like that. This was, and I do this occasionally, I get really super busy, and I as far as visuals, and I love it. I love when pages are super busy. And I remember people saying, "Oh, that's really pretty, but it's so busy." And I thought, you know, to myself, I know, and I like it that way. I went through a little bit of a phase of that. I think these pages were as much about the pattern as they were about the color. And also, too, this was someone else's art. Again, this was when I first started doing that sort of thing. I remember being incredibly proud of this face when I painted it, because I painted her smile. Yeah. This was definitely a lesson. This is the texture. I know it looks dark. Again, the camera makes it a lot darker than it really is in real life. But I love, 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 love making these. This was my attempt at drawing, I forget who she is, but I tried drawing her. Didn't really turn out right, but again, that's what it's all about. That's how you get to where I'm at now, is by working for it, or working at it. Another 3/4 face attempt, and getting a little more into, again, including collage, and now actually including words. And again, there's tons of texture in this. These pages were definitely all about texture. I was still really enjoying trying to do things that were a little bit more abstract. I don't know if you can tell, but there's tons of texture here because you often buy stickers, and when you pull all the stickers off, you have that sheet that's still sticky that just is like a mask. Or a stencil in that case. And so I would just, when I was done with the stickers and there was nothing left, I would cut them into shapes and use them in my journals. And this is just me reminding myself that you should try everything at least once. I loved this page. I don't know why. The little USS Happy boat floating along. I don't know. Random things in my journals sometimes, I tell you. I loved this because I was testing out the stencil a couple of times here, and this was actually on like old book paper and tissue paper. So, and just putting like really random stuff together. This was all about that television show. Oh, I forget what it was called. Yeah, I can't remember the name of it. Big Love or something, I think it was. It was where these women had like this one man had like all these multiple wives. It creeped me out in so many ways. It was just I can't even with that lifestyle. I'm sure it works for people, but that lifestyle freaked me out. You know, actually though, that was when I was younger. Nowadays, I don't know if I could handle being a sister wife, but I totally could handle just, you know, living in a household where there were multiple women, and we all kind of, you know, carried the task together instead of, you know, being the lone woman and having to do everything for everyone. I could see that, but I'm not so sure I could deal with sleeping with the three women sleeping with the same man. That just doesn't. I mean, if the women were sleeping with each other when they weren't sleeping with him, that might be a little more fair. But yeah, anyway, I still believe in fairness. I remember when I did this, I was so incredibly happy with this because I felt like I had done things differently than I normally did. I didn't try to paint the face. I left her face as it was. I did just lighten it a little bit, you know, like change the color from the background, but I just mostly left it the background, and I was really happy with that. Originally, this page had a drawing where I attempted to draw this profile. I could not do it. And so that's why it says I still struggle with this profile, and you can't read it because I painted over it because I was so frustrated. this was my attempt to draw this face. Again, you have to keep pushing. This journal is such a great example of you have to keep pushing. If you really want something, if you really want to be able to draw faces, you will be able to, if you really want it. But you have to want it enough. I remember falling absolutely in love with her, and I didn't even draw the other part of her face, the eye or anything. I never even tried because, or I think maybe I did try, and I couldn't figure out where to put it. But anyway, I used the hair to cover it up, and that's like a running joke online is, you know, if you can't draw the two eyes or whatnot, you just cover it with hair. Or if you can't draw ears, just cover them with hair or stuff. But I did just cover it with hair, but it just was so awesome. And everyone at the time was like, oh, she's a little bit sassy, a little bit sexy. And I was like, oh, I hadn't really thought of it, but you're right, you know, because I gave her like this slightly muscled arm. I don't know, really loved it. Oh my gosh, I was so proud of this face. I was so proud of it. And I drew this face with ballpoint pen because, again, I was originally taught when I first started approaching artists in like chat types of groups. I remember asking, okay, how do you guys learn how to draw something? And they were like, well, rule number one, they were like, we'll teach you. Rule number one, you have to do everything you do in ballpoint pen. And I was like, what? I can't erase? And they were like, nope, ballpoint pen. If you don't, then you're never going to learn. And I really resented that and resented my friends for making me do it that way. But over time, so like even this girl, it was all ballpoint pen. But over time, I found that they were absolutely right. And this was the first time I did a face just with, you know, with ballpoint pen, and was like, I'm happy or I'm proud of it. So again, like I said, this really, this journal really showcases that struggle that I think a lot of us go through. Again, testing out a new stencil. My first profile in ballpoint pen that I was super happy with. I don't know if you can see, like I had to change the nose a couple of times to get it to where I wanted it. But I was super happy with it because she looked like a human and I hadn't been able to erase. So I had just kept pushing myself, you know, forward. Although clearly I used paint to cover it up. But you know what I'm saying. When you're doing the initial drawing, you learn to accept a lot of, well, you learn to be more careful with your pen mark, you know, with your stroke, because you know you can't erase it. But at the same time, you also get more brave and you learn to kind of shape it out with multiple lines, etc., etc. Anyway, I'm going on too much. And this was also when I started playing around with adding lots and lots of jewelry and accessories to my faces instead of just doing a straight face and that was it. So I was kind of starting to branch out a little bit. Here I did incorporated a purse into it and her, you know, tiny little hand, holding it, and was super proud that I had done the hand and you know, more of the body. And again, you will get there. If this is where you're at, you will get to where I'm at now if you put in the time. Lots of lovely texture on these pages. I remember loving this as well. I think this was a lesson for probably like Art Geeks maybe. I don't remember exactly. Tons and tons of texture here and different types of mediums to get different kinds of textures. That was a big thing with me for a long time, was using a more matte texture and a like a glossy resistant texture and using them all together. Me just playing with stencils again. Layers are beautiful, and it's true. There's like multiple layers upon layers of stuff here. I remember always getting asked, why do you layer so much? Why do you cover stuff up with more layers? And because layers are beautiful, you get added depth. I really was super happy when I did this. I used a variety of different stencil, not even stencils, these were stamps technically. And yeah, I think they were all stamps actually, now that I'm looking at it. I tried to use the stamps because I didn't really know how to draw this stuff at the time, but I wanted to have that look, that feeling to it, that it was a little more of a Baroque type of Dia de las Muertes, instead of the more traditional look, although clearly some of the stuff was more traditional. But I really loved that. That was a lesson in, I think, Art Geeks. And that was, by this time, it was an Art Geeks that was open to everyone. Not behind a paywall. Again, another face that when I made it, I was so in love with it. I was so proud of myself because I had managed to shade, and I didn't do it with traditional colors because whose face is orange and pink, but it was a little closer to more traditional colors than what I often did. Let's see. Oh, and I tried to draw, I think you say Viggo Mortensen. Anyway, I actually was pretty happy because I felt like it at least remotely resembled him. And this was a lesson using one stamp and creating an entire page. And some of it is textured and some isn't. It's been heavily waxed, but at the time it also was different types of texture. Some of it was shiny, some of it was matte, but I have waxed the whole thing, so now it's all a little bit shiny. And this was the end of it, and this was the first time I started doing my puddle type of trees. And as well, this is a flower type that I did as part of a lesson for Art Geeks, but the lesson part is not in here, but that's what this is. This was actually technically practice because I turned the idea of this into a lesson for 30 days, the original 30 days class, if I remember right. So sometimes I do stuff in my journals that is practice for a lesson that I want to create. And that is the end. So this book has 151 finished pages, I believe. That's what that 149, yeah, 151 finished pages, and a huge journey, like probably one of the most memorable and eventful journeys throughout my beginnings of my art career. So, yep, there you go. All right, if you're interested in this book, it will be listed in Etsy. I am trying to get through all of the books that are the smaller sizes because the larger ones, the shipping is going to be crazy. So this one is 11 1/4 by 8.5, approximately. So there'll be quite a few that are about 8 to 10 or 9 to 12, 9-inch to 12-inch in the next few books that are released to Etsy. Okay, thank you so much for watching.